The 11 Bang Bang Reload Show starts now.
And we went twice. Everybody, welcome back to that show. I'm Garrett. This is Caleb here beside me, and you guys know our co-hosts here, Duke and Snapper. On the top, down here below me, we have Ethan, and our special guest down here on the bottom right is Rob from Firearms Addict, one of the best up-and-coming firearms channels that covers virtually everything. I saw him shooting a handgun today, so I'm pretty sure that we can't get much further back in time than that.
So I'm a little further back than that, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah? Well, you're our special guest today, so tell us about how far back your guns do go.
Oh, well, that's the oldest, and it's a reproduction, not an original, but I found that one in a book and copied the dimensions on it and got a machinist to turn the barrel and built the rest of it myself. But
Wow.
I'm working on what's called a Colt gun, which is the oldest firearm ever found in Europe, or at least that's what they say. I've got the barrel done. I just got to finish the mount for it, and it actually shoots arrows, believe it or not.
Wow. So does it look like a handgun?
It actually looks like a vase, like you would put flowers in, believe it or not.
Oh, I've seen those in medieval drawings. It looks like is it small cannon that you hold that looks like a vase?
Yep, it's about 18 inches, something like that. But
you shove arrows in it.
Dimensions of it, and had a machinist turn that one, and hopefully within a month I'll have it done.
That would be cool.
Wow.
So I've searched the internet, and there's not much information on them. There is a place in Denmark that made a reproduction, but there's nothing that I've been able to find on YouTube. So I think it'll be pretty neat.
And you said it shoots arrows, right? Arrows.
Yep, arrows.
That would be cool.
So
that'd be fun.
Yeah, and it has a tapered bore, which is interesting.
So what are you talking here? 13th century, somewhere in that vicinity?
Yes.
Wow. So we're talking like, did that appear in, I don't know if you know this, but in the Morgan Bible?
That I do not.
Yeah, it seems like I've seen that picture before of that thing, and I thought maybe it was exaggerated because of the shape, but it's not exaggerated, huh?
No, there's actually the original that they found, and I've read different tales on how they found it, either in a well or in a field, and it's actually in a museum in Europe. I want to say Switzerland or Sweden. I can't remember which. I meant to look that up before we started, and didn't get a chance to.
So I'm assuming this would be made out of iron.
Yeah,
of course iron, but is there any way of telling like the purity of the iron, or have you studied any of that? That's very interesting.
Actually, it's made out of bronze.
Ooh, okay.
Wow, okay.
Very cool. And
they're probably better with bronze at that time than they were with iron, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, because that was the Bronze Age or tail end of it, I guess. And yeah, they got pretty proficient at casting bronze. And the machinist that actually has a tapered bore, and then the original has a chamber. The machinist that I had turn it, he couldn't figure out a way to make the chamber. So it gets a little bigger at the breech side, and he couldn't figure out a way to do that. But I figure with modern powder being more powerful than the old stuff, it should be about equivalent without that extra volume.
Got it. So were they doing when they made it, did they cast it? I'm guessing that's how they made them back then, was cast them?
Yeah, they cast it originally.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So what caliber are we talking here?
It's right at an inch.
Okay.
Maybe, and I believe it tapers from an inch to inch and a quarter, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then cool. The shaft goes down into the bore, and then it has bronze or brass flights on the arrow, and then a steel arrowhead. And I've got the arrow shaft turned down on my lathe. I just got to make the arrowhead and put the fletching on it.
Franklin Horst wants to know how long before we can talk the game commissions into a season for that gun.
We'll see how it does. I'm really anxious to try it out.
Well, I've never even fired the handgun before, but the one I saw you shooting, you were hitting targets with it from the hip. So is it not as bad as people make it out, or what?
You know, there's virtually no recoil. Every book I've read says that they have the hook on it to absorb recoil.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried it multiple times. It's just unwieldy when you try and hook it over something and shoot and hit a target. And I do have a full video on that, on shooting that, and I show that in the video. And from the hip, I mean, I've gotten pretty proficient with it at hitting, you know, an IPSC target, man-sized target at, you know, 20 yards, 25 yards.
That's pretty good. I want to get over here and say hi to everybody that's in here. Gray Pilgrim was in here early, and I know that he's a huge fan of Firearms Addict. He talks about him all the time.
He does. He's a good, and I'm a fan of his as well.
I seen today, or was it yesterday, he was talking about a book on, I think it was yesterday, he was talking about a book that you had suggested to him on markings, right? Is that what the deal is?
Yes. Yep, on different stamps, more modern firearms, but it's a pretty good book. So, and he saw my video and ordered it right away.
He does that because I showed a video, I think 2 or 3 days ago, and maybe he already had it, but he acted like he didn't. But 2 or 3 days ago on the Richard Jarvis and the Open Top 22, Hold the Line, and today he had that book already. So,
yep. And he's caused me to purchase some books as well.
I'm guessing that's why I couldn't find Hold the Line, all sold out of stock. Great Pilgrim bottom.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, one of these days we're going to get him on here. It's one of these days. But anyway, he's in here. We got Kevin is in here. And let's see. He said, hey, 11 bang bang. We have Stephen M. Mann. Hi, Stephen. He said, well, in the house, the TP fires are extra warm and you won't find classified documents in here. Okay, we're not going down there. Okay.
That's funny.
Oh, let's see. And we have, there's the Gunsmith 4570 says hello. And Angelica Wood says hello. Hi. Louisiana Gray is in. He said, good evening. Diane Houston's in. She says hello, everyone. And we have Garage Guy 879 says hi. Hi, how are you doing? Iron Wings 3187's in. Hi, Iron Wings.
Hey.
Garza Vlogs and Turkey Creek 1823's in. Turkey Creek, whenever you're ready to come on this show, just let me know because we're ready. We're ready to have you on here. We got a lot of things we got to talk to you about. We got Michigan Mike up north. Said hello from Michigan. Hi. And it looks like that's everybody that's in. Not really any questions in there yet. If you guys got any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. But I know that most of you in the chat already know more than we do. So, well, with the exception of our guest, of course. But
I don't know about that.
Anyway, I know
a lot from you guys.
I know Snapper's been watching you for a while, and I think I might have actually found you through Snapper first. And Snapper, you got any questions?
Yeah, I do. How did you come across drawings to actually make stuff? Like, say, for instance, what you were talking about, going to a machinist to have stuff made on lathe.
So, just out of books, usually. And the only thing that I recall and actually use on a regular basis from algebra class is cross multiplication. Gotcha. So if you can get one dimension on a drawing,
you got everything else. Yeah,
you got everything else, and you can copy it. It's identical.
Awesome. That makes great sense because you just find somebody that has a kind of a cutaway, and then you come up with whatever it is, and you can use everything to at least make something what you see on paper.
You just need to know the barrel length, and what I'll do is I'll use a pair of calipers on the drawing, and I always do it in metric because it's just simpler.
It's simpler, yeah.
And I can blow it up to the exact size. I just need to know whatever the original size was and of those dimensions, and we're good to
Yeah.
go.
And I'm sure that the dimensions between most of them, just the way they were handmade, that you're at least going to fall within those, the specs. So you'd have something, very similar to what they had.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome.
So I brought props. So my handgun that I showed in that video, in the original, sorry, the camera's backwards because it's, anyway.
There you go. Yes.
There you go. The original video or book, and I have a full-length video on this. I do show a picture out of that book, and you put the text to it, and it looks about identical. I'd love to see the original that's in the museum of this one. But anyway, and that's how I did it, is I just used cross multiplication algebra.
Very nice.
Which I failed the first time.
Don't worry. I think we all did.
Cool.
Let's see some more props.
We got a quick
More
question
props.
here from Michigan Mike up north, and I don't know about Rob down there, but he asked, how do you feel about the Lamat reproduction revolver? I think none of us here, except for maybe him, have one. Do you have one of those?
I do have
Lamat?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I like it. I actually have used it in cowboy action matches, which freaks them out a couple times because they don't know what it is, and then they'll only let me load 6. And anyway, it's really fun. But I am planning on doing a full shooting video on the Lamat.
Okay. How do you feel about that loading lever?
Loading lever sucks.
Okay.
It's what I do is I take the barrel off and I load the cylinder, because that loading lever, if you use it, it's going to bend and break. So
okay, so you just pop the cylinder off and load it on a power tower or something?
I do. Yep.
Whatever you call it.
Very
Power
cool.
of the tower.
And the barrel, I don't know if you know, Garrett, the barrel on those actually unscrews. So, and Greg Pilgrim has one as well. He's had some videos on his channel about it.
Never had a chance to put much time behind one. No, I've never even shot one, to be honest with you. So,
I've been working on one since yesterday, and I actually think it's pretty interesting design. The way that the bolt works, I've never seen a gun that had a bolt that worked that way. I was pretty. Everybody says it really sucks, but I'm pretty intrigued. They did things very different than any other gun I've ever worked on, and it's kind of smart the way they did it in a way.
Oh yeah, it's interesting, and the way the timing works is quite interesting as well.
Yeah, it is.
I did an action job on it and had to redo the timing on it, and it was quite interesting the way they designed it.
Do you guys hear the same thing I'm hearing, where it's kind of like in and out popping?
Yeah, a little bit, and I'm not sure what that is, but I think it's just because internet's a little slow somewhere. But I had to ask Snapper, how would you say that action? Because I know nothing about the Lamat internals. How does that stand up to, say, Patterson internals? Are they?
I have never got to play with the Patterson enough to play with. Like, I don't understand the Patterson that well. I've never got to play with one enough.
I'd have to ask Duke then, because
you'd have to ask Duke.
Well, I'll try to keep it G-rated.
Oh, it couldn't be any worse than the number 3 American.
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar from the later Colt lock work, but there's a lot of extra parts. The triggers where you get a lot of difference because you've got the trigger, the sear bar, the sear. But yeah, basically it's just a little bit more intricate parts. But and then each part has its own individual springs. So just about double the number of internal parts on a Colt, and that's what you got in a Patterson. But otherwise, it's about the same.
Well, I was wondering if you had any idea how that stacks up to the Lamat action.
I've never seen the inside of a Lamat, so I can just testify on the Patterson.
Hopefully one day we'll all have just enough information we can actually do this.
This whole side has seen the inside of the pattern, and those Patterson, and those two, and not the Lamat, and those two over there have seen the inside of the Lamat, not the Patterson.
But not Patterson, yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Rob, have you seen the inside of Patterson?
I have not seen any inside of a Patterson.
I need to get a Patterson. Duke, you need to sell me your Patterson.
I would, but I
27
spent too much on it to use for living history.
27 moving parts inside of a Patterson, but you were just talking about the action, and I wondered if there was that many moving parts inside of a Lamat.
There's some interesting ways they did it, but there's not that many moving parts on the inside, realistically.
Yeah, I don't think there's that many.
There's nowhere near that much. I would say, let's see. I would say maybe 6 moving parts.
Yeah.
Here's the real question: how long does it take you to get the trigger lined up with all the hooks? That's what the Patterson has.
Well, when they talk about all the moving parts on the Patterson, they are including the falling trigger. They include the hammer as a moving part. The cylinder is counted as a moving part.
The ratchet is separate from the cylinder, so that's a moving part.
Yeah, that's how they get all those parts. They're not all inside the action. Let's go over here. Gray Pilgrim said about his Lamat, he said, "I will never use the loading lever."
Yeah.
Let's go on down here.
I really want a Lamat so bad, though. I want to buy one. Even a replica, I want one so bad. I think they're pretty cool.
I was going to buy a Pietta, and when I had the money saved up, the price had went from $600 to $1,400.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to buy a Patterson, and then I found out the price had went from $600 to $800, and I just happened to find a website, a little mom and pop website that had one for $6, and I bought it there, and I wished I'd have never done it.
Well, they're still going for a lot of money, even the Pattersons.
Nobody's buying them. Gray Pilgrim said, "I have all the books on the Lamat." I believe you have a lot of books. Iron Wing said, and Gray Pilgrim says, "Very hard to cock when needed." Iron Wing said, "I have so many guns on my bucket list: a Winchester 1866 reproduction and 357, a Lamat reproduction, a Remington Model 10 are next on my list." Now, that'd be interesting to see. Gray Pilgrim said, "Patterson, anyone who wants to sell." Well, I can tell you, we're probably never selling ours after we finally got it running.
That's the other thing, too. I spent so much time getting that thing running, I don't want to part with it.
And Duke,
but a guy told me, and it was a very wise piece of advice, he said, "You'll have 2 of the happiest days of your life will be when you buy a Patterson, and the second will be when you sell it."
Oh, my. Yeah, but tell us about, because I always have to preface this out. If you get a used Uberti, from everything I've heard, you're going to have good luck.
Yeah, the problem with the Ubertis is they tend to have mainsprings that break. And, you know, that was true even with the originals. I got a friend of mine, he's got one, the mainspring broke. And I've been told that you can slightly modify a Pietta mainspring and it will fit, but I think you have to widen the slot out because it hooks in. It's a V spring instead of the flat. We've not tried that with my friends. He kind of is afraid to mess with it, but that's the only thing you really got to worry about is that mainspring tends to break.
I've talked to 3 people here. Let me full screen this just so you can see, but I've talked to 3 people and all of them have the same experience, including us. That if you look at that cylinder ring and those notches, how they're grooved like that, that was just from the first few times of cocking it. That's how bad out of time they are when you first get them from Pietta. And like the hammer wouldn't even stay back on this one. It was terrible. Caleb had to do some major rebuilding in this thing. And everybody I've met here recently who has one has had that same exact issue.
So I'm guessing the bolt is dropping really early.
Yeah, or in any case, not even coming down all the way.
Oh, okay. Wow.
They are very difficult to time. Is that one got the ring on it, Duke, or is that the Uberti?
No, this is the Pietta, and it's got not a full ring. It's got a half ring, so it's actually coming up. This is after I timed it. It comes up right there and slides in. That's where it should be peening at, is right about there before it slides in.
Ours ain't peening anymore.
Yeah, ours was actually completely just actually driving. I can't really show it here, but
so yours is just the head of your bolt. It may be a little bit tall, or it's not coming up far enough on the hammer cam, and it's not clearing. Yeah, because you got a ring all the way around.
Yeah, look at the digs on the side that we took, and it took a long time. It's working fine now. Everything on this, I said that, and then I got about out of time, but it's working fine now, and we've actually ran it quite a bit. Well, I say we've ran it quite a bit. I've only fired 12 shots out of this thing in its entire life, but I have worked the action a lot. Oh.
We lose Duke?
No, I'm still here. I turned my camera off because I was reaching into the safe. This is the baby.
That's the good one. Let me zoom you in.
That's the good one. And if you look there, this one's peening too.
Just right before the hole.
Just right before the hole. And that's where it should, because that's when that bolt comes up. She's a little dusty, and she's actually rusted up a little bit in this safe, but that's all right. Just getting a little bit of patina wear on it.
I have a question for you then, Duke. So when you get to like the Walker and the Dragoon, right? I figured they kind of had the same idea, but like my Dragoon leaves no peening marks at all. It pops up directly in the cylinder.
Right, and that's the way a Walker and a first model Dragoon should be timed.
Should be, right. So I'm guessing the Patterson was just different then.
Well, that's Uberti and Pietta making them.
But the internals of the Patterson are nowhere near. I mean, it's a complete redesign when you get to the Walker.
I just figured they probably thinking that they had the round hole, cylinder stops that they should have popped up like how those do, but yeah.
Now this isn't. Stephen Mann said this isn't the time to part with any of them. Agreed there.
Yeah.
He said Gary Pilgrim said it's like his Lamat. He shot 4 shots and 1 shotgun blast out of it. Yeah. But it sounds to me like, Rob, you're having pretty good luck with your Lamat. Have you shot it a lot?
I've shot it a fair amount. Like I said, I've used it back in the 90s, late 90s when I first got it. I did some cowboy action matches, and I shot it in multiple cowboy action matches back then because I didn't really have anything else at the time to use. But and then it's not something I shoot every month, but I don't know. I'd probably have 500 rounds through it, I guess.
Nice.
Just rough guessing.
Did you have to do any work to it, or is that just out of the box shooting it?
That was just out of the box shooting it, but I did end up doing an action job on it, just to smooth things up, polishing the internals, and but that wasn't even necessary.
All right.
So now it's a Pietta reproduction. It's not an original.
Right.
Don't lock us in, dude.
What's that?
I said, don't lock us in.
Caleb, thanks for being No, but what I was going to ask was, I think we're far enough in at 23 minutes. I can't wait to ask anymore. Let's see that wheel lock. I can't wait to see that
wheel lock.
All right. Kind of tell us about where it comes from and how you got this thing, because let me full screen you here.
All right. So it's essentially a dream firearm. So this is my third wheel lock that I have acquired. The first one was a kit that wasn't very good, and I still have it, but it doesn't function whatsoever. The second one is but this is the real thing. I'll work these springs, and I mean it's just amazing. So this came from Poland, and the man's name is Bolek. Starts with an M. I can't even pronounce his last name. But he is a true artist. I don't know if you can see these.
Oh yeah.
It's a lion. The camera's all backwards. It messes me up here. Anyway, it's a lion, and it has some meaning, peace, and he's got engravings down here on the pommel.
Wow.
And all that bone inlays. one thing that I thought was really, you would look at these things in books. I've looked at them in books for years. It's got a safety right here.
Cool.
For safety. So blocks the trigger. So, I mean, and then I look at them in books and I see the majority of them had that. And until you get it in your hands, you just don't even realize it. So it's something else. But like I said, it was just like a dream firearm. Now this is a reproduction, obviously. But
I don't know if you can call it custom gun or reproduction.
This is true. I mean, this really is, if you could have a time machine and go back, I believe this is what you would get.
Yeah.
If you were an emperor or whatever, and my most favorite wheellock was Emperor Charles the Fourth or Fifth. It's an over and under wheellock in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it is just beautiful.
Wow!
But it's pretty.
Man,
neat.
I wish you could have seen the.
Here's the thing for winding.
Oh,
cool.
Neat.
Yeah, very good.
And I think when we were talking about Duke the other day, we talked about the wheel lock and how far it turns. So I thought I'd show that to y'all.
Okay.
So we're winding it. It's just about 3/4 of a turn on that wheel. And then it just releases it. It doesn't keep spinning or anything like that. It's just a short little spin. And the other thing that's really neat is when you pull that trigger, this cover opens up automatically to expose your pan. So there's a cover right here.
Nice.
It's just, it's really neat. And you push this button here, right here on the side, and I'm pretty sure, that closes automatically.
Very cool. So I have to ask, as a guy who loves the history of this 17th century and even 15th or 16th century stuff, I'm just getting into it. You got any good books that you recommend that are like your top wheel lock books? Or anything like that?
Let's see here. Off the top of my head, no, but I can grab some. I've got a bunch of books here, and I've got some. We've got a library.
That'd be cool to see.
Room.
That would be cool to see. But I just didn't know because you seem to be into this area. You have match locks and wheel locks, and have you got an English style dog lock?
I have a dog lock blunderbuss.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's very interesting, man. I had to see that that match lock or wheel lock up close. And I have to ask, the kit you got, I've been dying to try one from the rifle shop. Please tell me that wasn't a rifle shop kit that was that bad.
No, it was not. When I got this, it was long before the internet. And I saw it advertised in a magazine. I ordered it. It was a lot of money at the time, at least for me. And it was made for stage using it plays and things like that for stage acting, but it's just it's not right. The dimensions of the lock and all kinds of stuff. Now there are people taking my kit, I know, that bought it and sent it to the guy that built this over in Poland, and he's rebuilt them. And I talked to him about that, and it just, to me, it wasn't worth it. I wanted something, all from his end.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting because you look at the thing and it looks like it would be a kludge to use. Like it just looks like it's a giant handful of iron and wood and steel and everything to a modern shooter. That grip like this looks totally wrong. Is it that bad, or you got to get used to it, or what?
I mean, it's not that bad, and I don't shoot a lot, but it's not that bad. It's no 1911 or anything like that. But
so that's your carry.
Yeah, no, that's not my carry. Not at all.
if you ever do concealed carry, that make sure you can put the right clothing on. You don't want to walk around with normal clothing.
Oh yeah, exactly. So, and I do have a full video shooting this now. I will say it's when I first started making videos and I was raw. I think I'm still raw, but I think I'm better than I was then. But
Yeah.
If anybody's interested in that.
AR Americans in, guys. He's the wrench out there, just so you know. He's watching the chat for us tonight, I think. I hope he is anyway. We have Gray Pilgrim said, I have seen Cap and Balls one. I kind of have a feeling that's the same guy that made the Cap and Ball channels one, because they're both from Poland. And I would assume that's the same.
Well, for some, I don't know why, there's quite a few people in Poland that actually reproduce them.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, Cap Balls, maybe the same guy, but I'm not positive. But his doesn't look.
They did not have the ornamentation.
Exactly. Yeah, and now the ornamentation doesn't come cheap. So.
Well, I'm glad you got it. Let's put it that way. We'll probably never get a chance to see it. What is that line? Is that carved in the wood, or is that an inlay of metal of some kind?
It is bone.
Okay.
And then he actually draws or etches into the bone, I guess, like scrimshaw.
Yeah.
And it's just gorgeous.
Wow.
So, and the wood to bone finish and wood to metal finish is just outstanding.
Wow. That's just insane. I'll never see one of those probably in this part of the country in my lifetime. So I'm just glad you brought that to show us. Gray Pilgrim said, beautiful. Garza Vlog said that style, I think, is called a puffer because of the round pommel.
Yep, he is correct.
That's interesting. I did not know that. I'm learning something new every day. Gray Pilgrims, or Kevin said pirate gun, and Gray Pilgrim said the ball is to use after you shoot. Boy, I'd hate to use that gun in that way.
Yeah, to hit somebody on the head, I don't know. I guess if it was going to be like, yes, but I don't think I'll be doing that.
And Michigan Mike and Franklin Horse both agree that looks like something steampunk.
It does.
When you first see that big lock on those guns, you're like, wow. And then when you see an over and under one with that lock, you're like, whoa.
And they're crazy long. They're like way longer than you would expect them to be.
So you got to wear a top hat and welding goggles when you shoot it.
I believe that some of them have a matchlock sear on them too, don't they?
Some of them do, yes.
Yeah, plus the wheel locks. That is very cool.
And for anybody that's interested in these, on Facebook, there is a group called Matchlocks and Wheel Locks, and the man that built mine, he's the admin and for that group and started it.
Oh, okay.
He met one,
Interesting.
and has pictures posted on there that makes this look like it'd be like a I don't know, a Ford Escort to a Cadillac or a Mercedes.
I don't know. You told me about it. Yeah,
So,
you told me about the other day, and I went over there, and I loved looking at the pictures, but the prices, I was like,
what do they run?
might have to be. Well, I don't know exactly, but I'm not going to say exactly because who knows, but they're going to run you, let's put it this way, they're going to run you about 3 Colt single action armies for some of them.
Original one?
Original.
oh, absolutely. Yeah,
You know what's shocking?
It's a nightmare getting it into the country. I can tell you that.
Oh, really? Just why is that?
Our government is very good about getting taxes.
Oh, gosh.
We're not keeping this. We're making it political.
That's all right. I get what you're saying there.
I mean, every which way I got hit with another thing. Import, excise. I mean, just one thing after another. It was crazy. And it actually had to fly on an airplane. So.
Yeah, guys, we're not covering Alec Baldwin tonight. We all have our own independent videos up on that subject, I think. So we're not going to get too deep into that. This is just for fun. This is what we do just for fun. Gray Pilgrim said it reminds me of a Scott pistol.
Good.
one of the ones with the steel frame, I guess, like
a Murdoch or a Dune.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
the Murdoch today.
Highlander.
Or the Highlander.
did
Yeah.
Was
You
it
saw
brass
the
or
original Murdoch today?
iron?
It was the silver one. It looked like the one that
Silver.
you guys have. That's all silver.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one's based more off of a Dune pistol and more than a Murdoch, but I mean they're pretty close.
One of the they actually had an original one of those, and I actually saw a couple original early, those Willocks, and
Yeah,
it's kind of shocking. Some original ones, if they need work, they're quite a bit cheaper than I was expecting them to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
How much was the Dune or the Murdoch or whatever?
I want to say they wanted $4,800 for it.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't crazy. But
You're
the
gonna be
Willock, I saw one for $750, and it was an original. I'm pretty sure it needed a lot of work, but it was an original.
You're going to be seeing a lot of those once you get the movie review that we're going to do next week, Dan Snapper.
Uh-oh.
a lot of Murdochs floating around in that one.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Kevin said, Snapper, thanks again for all the info on black powder. Gray Pilgrim said, Rob, I'm so jealous. Task Force Tyler's in. Hi, Task Force.
Hi, Task Force.
Yeah.
His channel's growing leaps and bounds. I'll tell you that much.
Mm-hmm.
If any of you guys are into Minecraft or Fortnite, go check out Task Force
Check out
Tyler.
that. You know what's crazy? He's really into hockey now, and he actually got a follower that was from he's the actual news person for the Golden Knights, follows his channel now. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about your relationship with him or not. So
It's my son. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
Hey, we can finally say Task Force is Little Snapper.
A little snapper. He's an itty bitty snapper.
Hence why he's got the little turtle logo.
Yep.
Gina Wood said hello tonight. Miss watching, but doing my college work is already killing me, and this is the first week. You guys don't know that's my mom. She's going back to school.
Nice. Good to hear that, Mom.
Freedom by Me Homesteading said 11 B's represent. Represent, Ethan.
Howdy. I'm still coming down from this afternoon. From the excitement of this afternoon.
We'll talk about that just as soon as I get done with
Is that what you're playing with right now? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with the American.
An Angry Ranger said, imagine that was the hottest thing in combat weapons in its day. Makes one grateful for today's weapons. It does, but it also makes me wish that times were back there. Even though I love modern weapons, there's something a little more romantic and a little more soul in what he's holding there than there is in an AR-15. I'm sorry.
And it was a lot
of something that you can put a bayonet like this on.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's be honest. If we have something like that wheel lock, chances are everybody else is going to be carrying matchlocks. So you know what? That's not too shabby.
Yeah. And you're so wealthy, you could have somebody else shoot that wheel lock for you.
What do you got there? Let me zoom that in.
So this is what ignites the wheel lock. So it's
iron pyrite.
Pyrite, which is an iron ore, and also known as gold. So kind of interesting. I just thought I'd mention that.
So that's what fool's gold is good for.
Oh, yeah. I bet you.
Hey, Snapper, there's a lot of that in your neck of the woods.
What's that?
Tell them about your drone through the
There is a lot of that up in your neck of the woods out there at Fort Irwin.
Oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I thought I was the richest snapper in the whole world there for a minute, but I was just...
My question is, why doesn't flint work in a wheel lock?
Too soft, isn't it?
Too hard?
That's a good question.
I haven't tried it, but I would think the rock would just, flint.
Yeah.
Like
Brittle.
It could be,
Yeah, not cause any spark whatsoever.
Too hard.
Because really, a flintlock is shaving metal off of the frizzen. And that's what's causing the sparks. Well, you guys know that. So actually, I've got a block here. I was going to show y'all if you want to see it.
Well,
It's along these. I like these weird guns.
World. Oh, that's
Oh, hey, grenade launcher.
He's got the mortar.
The grenade launcher.
Cool.
Yep.
How far will that fling a tennis ball?
Got a easy
This
stock,
one
it
is
looks like.
actually golf ball size.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah, I do have one of the Veteran Arms ones. I think it is that makes them that does tennis ball size. But I acquired this before Veterans Arms. At least I knew about it, before the internet. So when I was a kid, I went to Fort Ticonderoga, which is up in New York on Lake Champlain, and they had an original in there. And I guess I was 10, maybe 12. I thought about that thing for years. And I was at a scrapyard and had this hunk of brass, and I was like, I'm going to build a flintlock grenade launcher. So that's what this is. But it shoots golf balls. And Garrett, you mentioned this is for fun tonight, and this sucker is fun. So,
I bet it is.
I thought y'all might like that.
I bet it'd be really easy to TP somebody's house on Halloween with that thing.
Yeah, probably would be.
Cover the entire block.
Well, I gotta ask because I see those all the time, and Ethan probably knows more about this than me. But I see them as mortar launchers or bomb launchers or whatever they want to call them. What is the exact projectile? How does it work? Is it like a time fuse? What is it? Originally, where were they supposed to shoot?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you.
No, me.
You,
Okay.
Rob.
So they were an iron bolt, from what I understand, with a fuse. And I've heard different things where the ignition would ignite that fuse, but I've also heard that split it, and then they would fire it off. But then you have what if it doesn't go off?
Yep. Misfire.
Yeah, if you have a misfire, then you're in trouble. So
You just use the people you don't like.
Fun
to make
fact:
them shoot.
one of the most
But they were,
famously, and I'm sure you've heard of it. One of the most famously used incidents where those were used was actually Queen Elizabeth I's birthday party, where they basically lobbed fireworks with them.
yeah, now
I'd seen that, and I was like,
That's a good idea.
there are very ornate versions, and there's actually even wheel-lock versions that they fired fireworks with them.
yeah.
So just so we're not confused here, what's the correct nomenclature on that thing?
And mortar.
I don't know. I call it a flintlock grenade launcher, but I believe they refer to them as hammers.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what I've seen. But I've heard a grenade launcher,
It is.
bomb gun.
Grenadier.
Yeah, they
There's
would have been issued to grenadiers early.
Yeah,
But,
well, there's a French word for it that they had for those. I can't think. I thought it was grenadiers. Not. It's can't think. But something. It's grenademan.
Yeah,
Basically, roughly.
I know what you're talking
translated.
about, but I can't think of it either.
And Gray Pilgrim's leaving. Okay, sorry, Gray Pilgrim. Night, folks. I need to get with you about maybe being a moderator on these things. I would like to have you.
Well,
Everybody
Garrett's
say
going through
hi.
the chat, Snapper. I got it out.
Oh, you did. You finally got
you
the armor
got it
out,
out?
huh?
You better tell us the story about that, Duke, and why
Yeah.
that's so impressive that you just did that. How many
So
years?
this thing, I bought it. I started shooting it. It locked up on me at the range. I spent about 2 weeks getting it timed and put back together. And I was carrying it at the time. I was working down at Ben's Fort, and I was carrying it. People asking, I'd pull it out of the holster and show them and tell them. And one day somebody asked me. I showed them, put it back in the holster. And about 10 minutes later, somebody else asked me. So I pulled it out, and when it came out, all that come out of the holster. Oh, I said I had it fixed, and I don't want to come apart. All that come out of the holster was this much. The barrel was still down the holster. So I spent like 2 hours going through the fort looking for that wedge. And when I found it, I was so mad. I walked right into the blacksmith shop. I laid that wedge on the anvil, and I took a ball peen hammer, and I wailed on it. And then I took the rawhide mallet, I put it in the slot, and I wailed on it into the thing. And for about a year, I couldn't even cock it because I wedged it in there so tight you couldn't turn the cylinder or anything.
And you couldn't get it back out.
And then I tried to get it back out, and when I did, I backed it off enough that I could cycle it, and then I didn't mess with it. But I was sitting here wiggling it, and it popped right back out. So
nice. You want to learn a little secret if your wedge is too loose? Like, for instance, I just got this pocket navy. Yeah. And its wedge is really
way
loose.
To show off on us. Way to show
now,
off.
let me show you my new toy.
We've been looking for that thing for 2 years.
I know. And I stumbled across it, and I'm telling you, the second I saw the price on this thing, I couldn't hand the guy the money fast enough. But
it's original, by the way.
The wedge kept popping out the whole time I was walking around with it. And what I do until I get the ability to actually add more metal, because I don't like the whole pounding it and flattening it out thing. Yeah. I actually will TIG weld it and then file it really smooth and make it look like it was never used. But what I do is I'll use lead solder, and I'll take the wedge all the way out, and I'll put a little thin lead solder through, and then I'll pound the wedge in, and then you cut each side of the lead solder, and that'll put it in there tight enough that it won't come out if you wanted to shoot it and use it until you could fix it proper. But that's just a little a hint of, if you have one that the wedge is too loose and it's giving you issues until you get to actually fix it right, just use some lead solder. Just stick it in between there, and the lead will move out of the way, and you won't hurt anything as well.
Well, the other reason why the wedge gets loose in this is that you can turn the base pin, the arbor. They're not pinned on these because that's how you fully disassemble it. You have to screw that out to get the ratchet out.
Interesting. I need to get one of those just
so you guys know, that now officially means that hopefully we can move forward with the history of the handguns of Colt episode 9, and it's going to heavily involve sniffer.
Now it is, right?
You do not realize how hard it is to get an original 1862 pocket navy that is not converted. They only made about 17,000 to begin with, and like
most of them got converted. When we were at the show there, this was the only one we saw at the entire antique arms show. They were all converted, or they were the pocket police. This was the only one at the show. There was one other, but it was a second generation Colt. This is the only first gen that was there.
And this is the antique arms show in Las Vegas. So it's big.
This is like the big antique show. Anything you want. Like, for instance, there were 2 Walkers there. There was a Whitneyville Lagoon there. There was a lot of good stuff there. And with 1,000,001 Henrys, those were everywhere. Those were like rabbits, man. They were spawning out of every crack everywhere. But yeah, I was shocked that this was the only percussion navy that was there, pocket navy.
And so we've been looking for years, and we actually bought one almost 2 years ago on Gunbroker out of California. And we sent the guy the money, didn't hear anything, and we paid pretty penny for what we would consider that. I think we gave close to what, $1,500,
$600
for that one. Well, it was whatever the deal was. The guy finally emailed us back, and he was nice enough about it. He's like, "I got broken into, store got robbed, gun's gone, refund you your money." And we were like, "Oh," and we have not found one for less than $1,200, I would say, since. Yeah. So, and we should have just shelled out the money to get one, but.
I was in California, and I got my nice little hat and this, and I went and found one.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, I got to ask, compared to the 49 pocket model, what do you think?
Honest to God,
it is a 49 pocket model, but yeah. Like, how's the action? Once you get into the war years, I assume that's a war years gun.
Yeah, I'm guessing. It feels identical. Honest to God, it feels identical.
Heavy spring.
I mean, I brought both of them down, and now I ended up taking the so this gun, it had its trigger spring broken, trigger bolt spring, and the bolt side was good, but the trigger side was bad. So I just put the trigger bolt spring and this one from this one, or the original 49 into this one, just to make it so I could shoot it tomorrow. And they feel identical. This is actually a little bit better because this gun has somebody had replaced the handle a long time ago and it wasn't fitted very well. And I went through it and made it better, but it's not perfect. There's quite a bit of slop in the action. But this feels just like a 51 Navy, like caulking. It feels like it should. It's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good.
So
it does seem
you think that if that came out the same year in 50, the same year as the 51 Navy and the 49 pocket model, my assumption is had that come out then, we would not be talking about the 51 Navy and the 49 pocket model as much as we would about that.
No, I agree. Just the idea of knowing that this is basically a 51 Navy, but smaller.
And now you have to prove if they're made in 61 or 65 or 53.
My guess right now, from what I know, I'm going 65.
Yeah, that's kind of my opinion too. Matthias has a different opinion, but
I can tell you one reason right now why I believe 65. Look at the Colt logo on this one. It's the small logo. Okay. My 1860 up there, it's got the small logo. The older Colts have the smaller logo, and then later on the logo got a little bit bigger. This has got the bigger logo on it.
Okay.
The Colt patent logo. So this is past 60. This would be past late 63, early 64 when they went to this. So this 51 Navy is late 63, and it has the larger Colt patent logo on it. Mm-hmm. So it would be, and this was that is a 62. So if it came out in 62, it doesn't have the right. It has that has the smaller logo. This came out like right before the fire, and it has this bigger logo on it, but I don't think this was 62. Just because also the script on the barrel matches later on, like the way they did things right after the factory was built.
What's your serial number?
Is it
it's 7,000.
Oh, okay. You're definitely in first to second year production then.
My guess, just looking at it,
they didn't make them very long.
the trigger's different from this one. This is skinnier, this is wider, and just the stamps and the way I've seen stamps, and even the way the knurling is on the hammer. All of these guns have a very simple knurl. It was just somebody with a file that had cuts in it, and they made them. This is stamped like a single action Army is. Or the later guns. So this is a later gun. I think 65, once the factory came back online, is when this gun was built. Just my personal opinion.
Just so you guys know, this debate has been raging ever since that gun was almost new, I guess, because for years everyone said that gun first came out in 1853. We all know now that it's almost impossible. The steel's not good enough in 53 for that to have happened.
And this was made in 58. This one was made in 58 to 49, and this one is.
A lot of people claim it came out in 61 with the 62 pocket police, but a lot of the research points to it coming out in 1865 after the fire.
Yep.
And it's been reignited here lately because Matthias made a video on Seeing Arsenal where he claimed to have talked to someone who he held up a book, but he didn't say it was in the book, I don't believe. And he said the author had told him that the United States military had adopted some of those in 1862 or 61. And so that reignited the firestorm. And I personally believe 1865 just because of the work of John D. Breslin, who's done so much work on it and study on it and came to the conclusion of 1865. Some really good articles on the internet on that. Let me get through this right here, and then I want to let Ethan go with what his story was today.
Yeah.
Serial numbers.
Stephen Polano said, I had a friend build a prison out of depleted uranium. Didn't even need primer in the pan. LOL. Okay. Task Force Tyler said Oreo.
I'm sure.
Franklin Horse said the pyrite shears and makes the spark and burns a little longer than in the tinder. Very good. Angry Ranger said, gentlemen, I consider a Colt single action Army a modern weapon. I don't do Tupperware guns. Very good.
Nice.
I consider it modern too.
Michigan Mike up north said, I need a golf ball launcher. My wife will be ecstatic.
Everybody needs one.
I would love to see all you fellas do a Peacemaker video about tuning, timing, troubleshooting, etc. If YouTube approved. I believe Snapper's already got that out there. or at least a lot of it.
A lot of it. I want to do one on like my way I like to time them. I don't time them exactly the way the book does it, and I like little idiosyncrasies of the way I like them timed. It's just, to me, there's ways you can time them, and early, late on the way something is engaged, and later, and I think you can get a tighter lockup if you play with that around. Play around with it.
Hey Ethan, tell us about Time Smith and Wesson.
Just a second. Hardy Hat's in.
Yeah.
John Nattencall said, I believe I pronounced that right. Nattencall has said, can't wait to, sorry if I butchered that. Can't wait to see that video snapper. Zurglub is in, says, greetings, Earthlings. Michigan Mike said he's very close to buying a Rossi 357.
There you go.
And Franklin Horse said, Duelist has a good video on honing. All right, we are through the comments up till now. Sorry if I missed any in there, guys. Ethan, tell us your story, and then we're going to get back more to Firearms Addict because we have a lot more to talk about, I think.
Well, before you start, I just want everybody to know that this is the most excited I've seen Ethan in a very long time when I answered the phone today.
Well,
yeah, I had to call.
Probably excited because nobody else answered the phone.
Yeah,
I know, and he calls me last. Thanks.
Oh, well, you weren't last. I had to call Garrett again.
Oh, well.
You knew about it before anybody, so.
Actually, yeah, you knew about it before Garrett did. Anyhow, so I guess this story all starts with Duke. Caleb discovered a site on Gunbroker where he can put guns on layaway. I don't know if that's a good thing or not because, well, we have been getting more guns, but Caleb's paying a pretty big bill every month.
Sold
So
shit.
So
we call it the
anyhow,
not having a wife yet tax.
yes. Anyhow, I was down here working in the basement one day, and Caleb is on the phone with Duke, and he comes down with his new smartphone because he just got one. And he's like, I need your opinion on this. I'm like, okay. He's like, what is this? Is this a Smith & Wesson? And this company, the first thing I looked at it, and it said Smith & Wesson clone. I was like, okay, it's probably made in Belgium or something. Then I got to looking at it, and I was like, man, this really looks pretty high quality for a clone. And then I started looking at some things, and I was like, it appears to me Smith & Wesson Model 3 American transitional model. That was my first guess. So Caleb was like, you think it's worth it? And I said, I honestly think it is a Smith & Wesson. However, it had stated in the description that there was no maker's mark or no name on the gun. No name. There was a serial number, and we'll get to that in a second. But there was no name or anything on it. And I told Caleb, I said, I am probably 99% sure that that is not a clone, that is actually a Smith & Wesson transition model. So Caleb went ahead and ordered it. It got to the gun store today, and unfortunately we could not pick it up because of what the AFT says a modern firearm is now, which is weird because now they're saying if it's any gun made before 1898, it doesn't matter anymore if it takes a readily available cartridge. And they did not, they're like, we don't know what the name of this gun is. We don't got the serial number or anything. And I was like, well, the serial number is there. But I went and I looked it up, opened it up, and it was not a 44 American because it had a shoulder in the cylinder. And so I did bring along some 44 or a 44 Russian piece of brass and asked him if it was okay if I would see if it would hold a piece of brass, not loaded cartridge. And they said that was fine, so I put the piece of brass in there. Sure enough, it's 44 Russian. Okay. That blows out my American transitional model out of the water. But this thing still looks identical to a transition model. So we couldn't bring it home because they couldn't figure out how to get it put in the books, they said, or whatever. So we got to go up Monday and pick it up. But I went home, I had pictures of it, and I started actually looking 44 Russian and what it was. And I found out what it was. It is what is referred to in Roy Jink's History of the Handguns of Smith & Wesson as an old model Russian. Basically what this was is it was a lot like the American transitional model between the 1 and the 2, or the number 3 Model 1 and the number 3 Model 2, second model. Yeah, it gets confusing. But it was the Russian version, because what had happened was in 1870, December of 1870, one General Gorloff had came to the United States, stayed in Hartford, Connecticut, because he was dealing with Colt manufacturing firm trying to get what was the name of that rifle? I just said that earlier today. What was that, Garrett?
Not the Burgess. It was it starts with a B.
Starts with a B.
Burden?
Same primer. Burden. Yeah, Burden rifles. The Russian government was looking to buy Burden rifles. Yeah, Burdan. There you go. Burdan rifles. Yeah, there you go. That sounds better. Sounds better than Burden. Burdan rifles from Colt, and Smith & Wesson had seen that they were up there, and so Daniel Wesson basically went and harassed this guy daily, came down there and tried to get him to buy a handgun for the Russian government, and it ended up paying off. The Russian government adopted the number 3. However, this General Gorloff had stated he wanted changes done to it. And so Smith & Wesson would bring him like a batch of 10, and he would look at it, and he'd be like, this is pretty nice, but I want this change. They'd bring another batch of 10, and he'd be like, I want this change. What happened with these guns is that they were included in the very first 20,000 pistol order once the actual Russian, the first model Russian, was adopted. The first 20,000, they were included. However, because they were not standardized with the majority of the guns, they were actually sent back to Smith & Wesson, where they had their markings. They had the Cyrillic writing, that was the Russian Cyrillic writing on the top, was scrubbed off, and they were sold on the American market. We have one of those. We actually have. This is weird. The Smith & Wesson number 3 Russian model, serial number 38.
Man.
So now know he can't pick it up till Monday. So I want you to look at his face right now, and then try to get a look at him like Sunday night, because you're going to see what it looks like for a man who hasn't slept in the next couple of days.
Yeah, we all got to start a petition that my finder's fee is a 1903 hammerless model.
So you better pray that serial number 38 doesn't get burned up in the fire or something in the gun store over the weekend, because it still ain't here.
And I just find it tickles me pink, because the Model 3 Russian is really the handgun that saved Smith & Wesson, because all the other handguns, while they were kind of successful, that Russian contract is what saved their bacon. And this is serial number 38. This is one of those ones.
It's getting to be common that the idea of a story starting with Caleb or Duke calling about a gun they saw on Gunbroker. I mean, this is getting to be kind of, I'm just saying, there's some things back there that started the exact same way.
And just the
thought Caleb not telling Snapper about a gun on Gunbroker.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
I was with Duke when we bought that.
He got his revenge on you.
Yeah, indeed I did.
So
when I got this, Caleb decided he wanted to throw an extra bit in, so he made it more expensive for Snapper.
Wow, Caleb. Wow.
A.O. American said, I want an 1873 Winchester. One right there.
Me too.
And you can shoot that. Victor Schultz said, guys, I'm out of here. Got to get up at 6 in the morning. Have fun. US. Oh, well, thank you. Good night. Oh, yes. The one that started it all, the 1873. All right. So we're through all that. Now we're going to get back down here to the firearms addict, because he's our special guest and we've just been talking and talking. I got to ask him. I think right now he has just as many cannons as Hank Williams Jr., if I believe what you told me is correct. Hank has 5. How many cannons do you have?
Oh, I have 7.
Oh, you got him more.
You got him outgunned.
You got him outgunned. Tell us about your cannons, and how in the world does a guy get into cannons of all things, and where do you find them?
So I think I was just born with the gene. My mother's dad, my grandfather, who passed away when I was a year old, he had a decent gun collection, which, my parents always said he had a huge amount of guns. Well, I've recently found out from my dad it was about 20 guns, which, as you guys know, that's essentially nothing. So not a drop in a bucket. Yeah. But going to Fort Ticonderoga when I was a kid, West Point Museum, just all kinds of places. I was just always fascinated by it. So my first cannon that I got was a naval gun, and you may have seen that video. I didn't. It's the one that I shot the chainsaw with.
Mm-hmm.
It came from a company out of Ohio called Cannon Limited. So that was my first one. Then I got a mortar, Cohorn mortar, Civil War vintage, 24-pound Cohorn mortar. Mortars are where it's at as far as artillery is concerned. They are just so much fun. It's just amazing because you launched it off, you see the projectile going up through the air. It just it's kind of awe-inspiring. It's really cool.
So much more fun than a regular cannon.
That, all the ones that I have, I built myself. Had machinists turn the barrels. I've got a Civil War ordnance rifle, 3-inch ordnance rifle that the barrel is turned, and I built the carriage for it.
Nice.
And I do have a short video on it. It's a lot of work to take out, and even just getting it out of the barn is like a nightmare. Trying to get it around everything. So, but I do need to get it out and shoot it here. Now the cameras are a little better. The last time I shot it was probably about 10 years ago with my son.
I'm actually looking into getting my own cannon, and I've kind of talked to Duke about this a little bit. Have you ever messed around with a little 3-pounder Verbrugen gun?
Well, that's very similar to what my naval gun is.
Okay. Yeah. I'm kind of interested in getting one of those.
Yep. All right. Have you looked at a tube anywhere? I know her and our works.
Yeah, I'm actually a member of the Cannons. I think it's Cannons and Mortars Facebook page, and there's been a guy I kind of contacted on there about it. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yep.
So I gotta ask, is my favorite gun in there, and that would be the Hotchkiss mountain gun? You got one of those?
I do not.
Oh,
No.
I think that is
got to come with ATF paperwork.
Yeah,
it
takes a shell.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now
it takes a pill.
Creek back. I don't know if y'all are familiar. Knob Creek was a big machine gun shoot. It doesn't happen anymore. It was in Kentucky, and there was a guy that had a revolving Hotchkiss. It was amazing. You know, like a Gatling gun, except with 2-inch projectiles.
Wow.
At the time, that was early 2000s. They wanted $60,000 then.
So basically, it was like the 1800s version of the Mark 19.
Like a Mark 19?
Yeah. Exactly.
Probably didn't jam as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what the 7th Cavalry used at Wounded Knee.
Oh, is it?
Wow.
Yeah. It was either that or it was the 75 single barrel Hotchkiss, but there's been a couple records where I seen they talked about having the rotating. I think it's 5 barrels, because that's when they mowed into the so-called hostiles, and then they realized that no, that was the women and children trying to get away, and the soldiers just stopped. Went against orders and just stopped firing because it didn't take very long with that particular cannon to mow down
everything.
Yeah, it was not
the Northern
pretty.
Indian Wars were done.
Yep, that was well. There was, it was the last of the northern ones, but yeah, you still had some of the Apache stuff going on. But that was the last tragic event of the Northern Plains Indian Wars.
Okay, Stephen M. Mann said firearms enthusiast. I think he's talking to Firearms Addict, unless firearms enthusiast. There is a firearms enthusiast channel I've been talking to a little bit. I need to get him on here too. But firearms, I think he's talking to you. He said, do you have a source for 12-inch mountain howitzer friction primers?
What are you them for, Mountain Man?
Off the top, what's going on here? But there's a magazine called The Artillery Man, and there are advertisements in there. And if you want to shoot me an email, I can look in the Artilleryman. I've subscribed to that magazine since 1984 or 5, something like that, and I have every issue. But yeah, just send me an email. It's thefirearmsaddict@gmail.com, and I don't have any problem looking up and giving you a few sources for friction primers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Steve, if you email me too, I can get a hold of the guys where I work at and see if the source we were getting them from is still in business. But when we fire the 12-pound mountain howitzer out there at the fort, I mean, we've got enough primers to last us a while. So the problem we were having with some of the newer primers is they're putting in too much beeswax and not enough powder, and they weren't going off.
Oh, wow.
The primer would go off, but it wouldn't set off the powder.
Well, Task Force has asked the question that will not be asked.
No.
And we're going to let Rob down there answer this because everybody knows where the top 3 of us stand on this question. And
we got to kind of narrow it down.
Task Force wants to know, and I think he's talking about handgun. Unless you're not talking about that snapper, then we'll go, or Task Force, then we'll do a little wider. But I believe he wants to know, what do you think was the best handgun of the Civil War?
He would ask that too. Thanks. You're gonna get all.
I'm down for this discussion.
I'm down too, and I will bring the receipts as well. The 1860 Army.
Yep.
I want to hear what Rob has to say because I know he has a lot of cap and ball revolvers. Would you have an opinion on the best handgun of the Civil War?
Well, if it was issued or had been issued, I'd say the Spencer, but since it wasn't, I'm going with the 1860.
Yeah, Rogers and Spencer's. It's hard to beat. It's really
Rogers and Spencer. Sorry.
It's my opinion. Caleb, elaborate. Talk. You have the table. Talk to these people and tell them what you think.
I'm starting to think the double action star was.
You are going to be in a camp all by yourself for the rest
Caleb, you're drunk, man. Go home.
You've had too many root beers.
Well, give us your reason why. Elaborate.
I really like it.
Well, that's a good reason.
Any other reason?
Firearms has left the channel or left the group chat.
Yeah,
after that comment.
Oh,
As a matter of fact, I just got a comment on that short we released today on Colt versus Smith & Wesson. Guys, by the way, that was not a planned video. That was literally, in all honesty, a conversation Ethan and I were having. I flipped the camera on. We have those things.
We were actually having a little bit of a debate there for a little while.
Debate, and I flipped the camera on, and it turned into, when we were watching it, we were like, "Wow, this really is hilarious." If you're watching this from the outside, the way we debate this thing. But I did have a guy just comment on that video a few minutes ago that said that he is there representing the Hopkins and Allen people. What do you got there? You got your star? Is that a single or a double? That looks like a double.
It's a double, and watch this.
Oh no, it works.
Yep,
it works.
Yeah,
it works. Now, I've got a video posted on this, and I just was playing around with it. It's the way you pull the trigger. I feel certain. Now, I haven't played with a different one, but you have to pull the trigger kind of up and back at the same time. If you pull it like a traditional, it messes up. And I have the caps removed from this, just so you know that the nipples are not in here. So
is that a real one?
All day long. This is a Pietta.
See, yeah, and this is what we kind of ran into because I've handled some of those, and I've actually handled originals where I was in a place in Colorado where I'd never even seen original double action, and the guy hands it to me, and he's like, "Do not cock that hammer with your thumb." And I was like, okay.
"Oh yeah, no."
I don't think you could anyway on an original, but man, the difference was not on an original. It's just a heavy trigger, but there's no way to mess it up. I mean, it's just on original. It's just boom, 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 and I honestly think that they went to single action not because they were quote unquote unreliable or something. I think the manual of arms is just so complicated to teach somebody to use that it would be, no sights, no way to figure out. I mean, it takes a while to figure out single action on that, in my opinion.
On the original one, if you just pull back the trigger a hair, all you gotta do is pull it back far enough for the sear to drop down, or the bolt, and then you can cock it with your thumb.
So I think all of us here, including Ethan, agree that the 1860 is the best pistol of the Civil War.
Well, now we gotta get a little more complicated. Are we talking best pistol developed during the Civil War or best one used during the Civil War?
Well, issued
in the Civil War,
because you know the crap. I just thought of it. Forgot his name too. The Hopkins. No. Holy crap! He's Rogers and Spencer. Yes, I think that was probably the honest to God looking at them. Probably right. Developed at that time, but they weren't used in the Civil War, really.
Right. Because if we're not going to go with just developed, then I'm going to modify mine to the 51 Navy.
Oh, no, you're taking the chicken's way out. Stop it.
Because if you look at a lot, especially in the Southern records, the Southern Cav, when they use it, everybody preferred the Navy.
Yeah.
And in Elmore Keith's book, he quotes one of the cavalry guys he had interviewed as saying that the Navy had better penetration than the Army rounds. And one day when I was up testing Eric's Gone bullet molds, the Johnson & Dow 44s and the Colt Cartridge Works 36s.
Yeah.
I was shooting at the target, and our target up there is a big, tractor tire with conveyor belting for your target stop to put your targets on. And when I was shooting this, it was punching right through that conveyor belt on that Navy. At the same distance with the Army, those bullets weren't penetrating, and at 20 yards, I had one come back and smack me in the thigh right above the kneecap, and I thought I'd shot myself.
Nice.
And my uncle and I went up, and we picked up every bullet of that 44 we'd fired, flattened them out real good, but they would not penetrate that belting, but them 36s would just zip right on through it.
Now on a person, though, do you think that would have been more effective on a person for
that's what I was going to say.
It probably would have done a little more internal damage because those bigger bullets would have done out more. But like I said, with this, you'd had a little bit more penetration with it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah. I think that 44 would probably do better, like you're saying, though, because it's just going to dump energy whenever it hits soft tissue.
Now, the reason why I don't say the Remington New Model Army, because I wrote an entire book basically in the comment section on the last video, is if I based my thoughts off the replica guns to date, I would tell you that the Remington was a better gun. But I own 2 original Remingtons, and I own Colts. The Remingtons, the replicas are far better than the original guns. The original guns are they're not horrible, but the quality of make and the reliability of them is bad, very bad. And my biggest problem is everybody's like, oh, you could switch the cylinders out. Not on an original like that, because not because you have to fit the cylinder. Is every time I've shot my original, it took me 45 minutes to get the freaking cylinder pin out of the gun because it would get stuck. It would get stuck.
Well, here's another question, Snapper. You've been in the Army. That cylinder is a serialized item, right?
You darn right it is.
Now, could you imagine what would happen if you're trading around your serialized items?
Exactly.
Just have a handful of them in your pocket.
And
they weren't making extra cylinders.
Also say at the same time that the Colt would be much harder because you have to keep track of that wedge. That wedge does not come off of a real Colt. Replicas do that. Originals, they're trapped. They don't come off. The Remingtons are not as good, the original ones. They're just not. I wish I could say they were great, but they're not. They're not horrible guns, but they do not have the quality of manufacturing between each gun that could leave you with the kind of firearm that you would actually want to defend your life with. That's why so many of these troopers were trying to get Colts after they got Remingtons. Now, both Remingtons I owned were from 63 to 65.
Wartime.
and they were not good.
Here's the thing to bear in mind. Colt had since 1848 to set up and perfect the handgun revolver that was going out into the Civil War. Remington, even though it's called the 1858, did not come out until 1861 with the Remington Beals. 1862, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, with the Remington old model, and 1863 with the Remington new model. They were baptized by fire into the making of military-style handguns. And they were really, I mean, you got to expect it. Looking back at some of Colt's earliest Pattersons and stuff like that, when he was first figuring this out, they were rough. Definitely some of the Walkers, I believe, were pretty rough. Some of the first model Dragoons were probably pretty good. Snapper has one, but
first model Smith & Wessons, they're a little rough.
The Remington brothers did not have Elijah K. Perfect everything like Colt did.
When I all the Remingtons that I've messed with, they seem like they were thrown together as fast as they possibly could to get the money out of it, because the Colt factory went down. If the Colt factory did not burn down, I really don't think the Remington, like the new model Army, would be a small footnote in the Civil War.
It was November when they quit ordering the 3 months before the fire, when they quit ordering 1860 Armies, because Remington came in at such a cheap price compared to Colt.
They were much cheaper too.
But you got to remember, Colt already had employees that had been there for over 15 years at that point, perfecting the and Remington was just starting out. So Colts were going to be a little more expensive.
All I can tell you though with the Remington is, if you pick up a replica and you're holding it in your hand, no matter what it is, it's far better than the original. And I wish I could say otherwise, but every single thing is a problem on the original. And I think the main reason why the cylinder pins are such a pain in the butt on the originals is you start shooting them, they get stuck. And I've even gone to the point of where they're so polished that they fall in and out when you have the loading lever down. You start shooting them and they completely seize up in the gun, to the point where you actually have to either both originals I had, the main heads had fallen off. They're not one piece. They're a bar with the main head that's actually kind of like on, and it's kind of pinged on the other end. And both of them were broken there because of people having to pound those off. So you'd either have to take the hammer off on the back and then try to pound that cylinder pin forward. And I never found a fix for that on mine personally. I just never could. No matter what I did, it would do that. It would foul out really fast, and all the parts were just the fit and finish was bad. Everything was just barely good enough to work that I bet you they just barely passed inspection on most of these guns. Now, later versions, did they get much better? I don't know. I only dealt with the wartime versions.
Just from what I know and what I've read, the very few turned out post Civil War people love them. Yeah. And I think it was by then that they had gotten they
figured out all the issues.
They had gotten it worked out, ironed out. But like I said, it was a baptism of fire getting those guns up and going as fast as they did. So it is interesting.
And why I say that the Colts are better than the Remingtons is after the Civil War, I had one guy argue. It said, well, everybody was buying up Remingtons and you couldn't get Colts. Nobody wanted to buy a Colt on the surplus market. And I told him, I was like, well, when the Army had, I think if my memory serves me right, a little over 200,000 Colts, or no, not anyway, the Colts, they bought more Colts than they did Remingtons. After the Civil War, the reason why Remingtons were everywhere, the Army surplus the Remingtons and kept the Colts because they wanted to keep the gun that was actually functional and worth something and use that in the service. They kept all those. They converted, I think it was 2,000 of them, they converted to cartridge before they started looking at getting new guns. And, they get in 1870, they start doing trials with new guns, 71 and 72, you get the open tops. And then the Army says, hey, Colt, if you make this with a top strap and beef it up to 45, we'll buy that. And you get the 73 single action Army.
Yeah.
The Colt was superior.
And one more thing, a lot of Remington guys like to bring up the top strap. the 1860 Army and the 58 Remington did not make the horsepower that you needed the top strap. It really wasn't that big of a deal at that time.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, when you're pushing those bullets through there, I mean, you're not pushing them to the power that you're going to make a difference. Now, with modern reproductions, you put a hot 45 Colt load in an 1860, you're going to possibly do some damage. You might tear that wedge right out of the end of the base pin. But you also take the same chance of doing that with a Remington too, even though that top strap's there. If the top strap blows, the gun is done.
Completely
with
done,
1860, if you blow out the base pin, you unscrew that, put a new one in there, put a new barrel on, and if you haven't bent the frame, you're still good.
So here's you somewhere.
The Colts didn't jam as much as people think. The older Colt style caps, they really weren't a big problem like the modern caps are.
No, if somebody really wanted to start a debate, they would say, all right, year's 1876. The reason I say 76 instead of 77 is because that's when double actions come along. Mm-hmm. You're a part of a posse. What would you choose for your handgun?
73 single action Army.
I would say the same.
I'd say probably a Schofield.
That's because you're one of those single action. Are you the Smith & Wesson fanboys?
You know, I'm going to be honest. There's nothing wrong with a Schofield. They're a great gun. The one that the Bang Bang boys let me shoot, that was a lot of fun to shoot. I liked it.
Yeah.
It is an adjustment in getting your point of aim from being used to a Colt. However,
you better grease your arbor.
I'm a very firm believer in Murphy's Law. And it would be my luck in that posse I grow to draw that thing out and pull an apple dumpling gang scene and dump all my bullets on the ground.
You know, that's actually quite easy to do with that thumb latch there. That's why it would either be this or the number 3 American. I actually kind of prefer the number 3 American latch a little better.
So if I was going to take a Smith & Wesson into it, it'd probably be a first model American.
Yeah.
Because I've handled one of those, and when I draw it, to me, it draws and points just like a Colt does.
Well, if
I get some money saved up, I'm going to get me one of them. Or if anybody wants to donate some money so I can get one of them. But
finder's fee?
Yeah, there you go. Finder's fee.
Okay, guys. I want to read just this little bit. I've been thinking about reading this online for a while. This is a actual letter sent from what's the guy's name here? Captain William R. Shoemaker. And his is stationed in New Mexico in 1865. And this is after the fire. He wrote on October 16th, 1865. This is actually Commander Howe wrote this. He said he wrote to the COO saying he had requested 1,023 Colt Army pistols, but had received an invoice for Remington revolvers from St. Louis. He asked for Colts instead, as I deemed Colts to be better arms for service. Captain John R. Eddy of the Ordnance Office answered the chief by replying, "This department is not purchasing any Colts at present, Remington being considered equally as good. This is not a satisfactory response to Colonel Howe, especially coming from a lowly captain. November 11th, he directed a protest to General Dyer, said, I had the honor to send September 6th a requisition for ordnance property of use of my regiment, and by letter of date, October 2nd, was informed the ordnance stores called for in requisitions had been in order, as Remington pistols were invoiced to me instead of Colts as I called for. I suppose this to be a mistake. And on the 10th, Ultimato wrote to the chief of ordnance that it be corrected. On the 26th, Captain Eddy writes, this department is not purchasing any Colts at present, Remington being considered equally good. I did not apply for this opinion of anyone who has the qualities of Colt's pistol compared with any other kind of pistols. For probably when Captain Eddy was much younger than he is, I had seen a Colt pistol tried and was well satisfied with it, and have not yet seen any pistol that I would exchange it for. I cannot but think there is a large number of Colt's pistols in these armories. If such is the case, I will be willing to receive them if serviceable, even if not just purchased, and I would prefer to do so rather than take Remingtons. Shall I have the Colts? And unfortunately, he never got them. He wanted Colts. They wanted Colts. They didn't like the Remingtons.
No.
And he was saying there, he was basically saying you were in diapers when I was watching Colonel Colt's pistols being tested. And for anyone who thinks that Colt stole the top strap from Remington, this is an 1855 Colt with a top strap, just so you.
Yep. And there's several examples of dragoons. And I think a 51 Navy with a top strap in the early 1850s. They were prototypes that never went in. But if you look up Kaito Ojama's channel, one of his videos, he went to the Connecticut Historical Society Museum, who now has the original Colt collection, and they've got some prototypes there, and they've got I believe it's a first or second model dragoon with a top strap, but it's also set up. And anybody that thinks that Smith and Wesson come up with a tip down design, this dragoon has got a top strap with a tip down design because it's built in a rifle so that it can be reloaded easily.
I have a question there, Rob. Would you mind showing us how you open up that Star revolver?
Sure.
No.
No, go do it. I want to show people that think that Smith and Wesson came up with this first. This is like 1858.
So you unscrew right here
and flip her down.
And I'm gonna move my wheel lock so it doesn't. Sometimes that cylinder will fall out, and
this is not a Smith and Wesson design.
So
yeah, but your cylinder stays in place.
Well, yeah, cap and ball revolver, but it's still a hinged tip up, or tip down.
Yeah.
I just always think that's funny when I see things like this that kind of turn everybody's thoughts on their head on what came up.
It almost makes you think that maybe King maybe didn't look at that and go, I got an idea there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good idea. I don't know why anybody else didn't.
And I mean, everybody, it's pretty obvious I'm a big Colt fan, but I love all these old guns. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
I really don't want people to think that I hate one over the other. I mean, I own a Remington, and probably not for much longer, unfortunately. I go through those pretty fast, but I love all these guns, no matter what they are or how bad they were. I love all of them. And
the problem is I love them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
But yes, I am a big fanboy of Colt, and even Smith and Wesson's. Kinda. I have an image to keep here, but I do love all of them. So, yeah.
Well,
while we're here, I'm just here saying, hey, look, the Colt was the greatest thing ever. It had its flaws too, but if I had to choose between the two, it would have been a Colt. And you just can't compare the replicas because they're not the same. The replicas of the Colts are not made as good as. Like a Remington replica is made better than the original, but a Colt replica is not as good as an original. I'm sorry, it's not. Maybe a second gen would be, but yeah. I hope you guys kind of get the point of what we're trying to make here.
Well, while we're talking about this, I might add a little bit to that. So, as much as I like to poke fun at Colts and say how much I love my Smith & Wessons, which I do love my Smith & Wessons, I'll be honest with you. If I was back in the day and I was living a life of where I had to use a firearm a lot and probably do a few gunfights, I'd probably use a Schofield for that. But to be honest, if I wanted a gun that I knew would not break, would kill a bear if I had to, and I could ride
this, I need somebody to record this. Hold on, make sure you record this. Okay, go ahead.
It's all recorded.
And I had to ride through dust and dirt for a long time. I would go with the 73 Colt. The reason why, I'll tell you this: 2 reasons. One, I don't have to worry about greasing my arbors. If I'm doing something where I have to use my gun and I know I'm using a lot, and I have time to grease that arbor, I'm going to go with a Schofield. And I still love my Schofield more than 73 Colt. But here's my point. Every single Colt that I've handled, for the most part, from the 18th or 19th century originals, still works. Almost every single Smith & Wesson that I've got that's an original needs a little work. And by little,
just a little, not a whole lot.
I mean, a lot. Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. But I still think this design would have been a better gunfighter's pistol, in my opinion.
Of course.
Yeah,
I would say
but
on the flip side of that, I'll admit this as a Colt fanboy, that if it's 1880 and there's 3 guys out in the street attempting to hurt me or my family or someone else, there's a Schofield here and a single action army here. I hate to say it, I'm going to go with the Schofield and a handful of bullets because I can reload faster. But just like Ethan said, if I'm homesteading 150 miles or 5 days or more away from anybody, and I don't have a forge of any kind, I'm definitely taking a single action army because I just know how few parts that has compared to the Schofield. And springs. The least amount of springs you can have, the better.
The problem the problem with Model 3s and Smith & Wessons isn't so much the springs, it's the geometry of everything inside the gun. Because when you open one of these up, there's not a whole lot to it. But what there is of has to be perfect. And I mean perfect. Like I've sit here, my Model 3 Russian I've got upstairs. When I first got that gun, somebody had taken and ground off the notches in the hammer for the trigger. And they were trying to make a slip gun. Problem is once you ground them off, it is a trigger activated system, and if that trigger can't engage, namely it makes the gun inoperable, but they didn't know that. They just ground it all off to make a slip gun.
They treat it like they would do a single action army if you wanted a slip gun.
Yep. And Caleb went and took it on the TIG welder and actually built that hammer back up. And I sit there for, I kid you not, 2 weeks. This is why I know my Russian's so good. 2 weeks. I would open up that panel. I would fold in that hand, pull that hammer out, sit there with a file, take a couple of swipes on it, put it back in and try it. Yep. By the time it was said and done, I had to get like 400 grit sandpaper. And I found just the right spot. And I was like, okay, that's it. No more, because any more swipes and we're going to be in trouble again.
There's a few questions over here.
I recommend everybody do that, by the way. If you ever really want to know your gun really well, rebuild it.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I know Colt so well, is because, my 2 Piettas, I had to rebuild them, the Remington and the Colt. I've had to get in and fix my Ubertis to get them to run smooth. So, yeah, I know a Colt inside and out. The only problem I have timing is getting the bolt time. That is a pain.
It can be, it can be.
But honestly, I think that's part of the reason why I like these Smith & Wessons so good, is just because I've gotten to know them after literally taking them apart hundreds of times.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to get fond of one.
Yeah. But yeah, comparing the Smith and the Colt, I think Mike Bellevue said it best on his video. I think it was on the number 3 Model 3. He said that the Smith & Wesson was a shooting gun. The Colt was a fighting gun.
Yep.
Because
honestly,
Colt, you can fire pretty rapid. Smith, it takes a little longer to shoot those.
In and of the different models, if I was talking about one that I wasn't worried about the ergonomics as much and just a robust handgun, Model 3 Russian 3rd generation is probably the most robust of all the Model 3s. That thing's built like a tank.
Gots Loco says, does anybody have an opinion on Allen and wheel lock side hammer revolvers?
I don't know anything about
really messed with. I know what they are, and that's about it.
Okay, so my sound system's about to go out, guys, so we may have to go here in just a minute if I don't hear you. But we got a few questions here. Not question. He said, Diane Houston said, can you still find parts on the original Colt snapper?
Yes, easily. Quite easily.
A lot better than you can for other companies.
Yeah, a matter of fact, you could pretty much find anything you want for a Colt. There's modern reproduction parts made for Colt, and then, believe it or not, most Uberti parts will fit a Colt with very little modification.
Yep.
Yeah, on the other side, you may want to get good at fabrication if you're a Smith & Wesson fanboy.
Yeah, if you're a Smith & Wesson fan, buy yourself a mill and a lathe and learn how to use it.
This one's got really an actual Colt base pin in it.
Oh, you in yours? That's a good idea. That would be actually a really good idea to do.
I found one for a really reasonable price, and I was like, I'll try it. Dropped it right in.
I don't have it here, but I don't know if your base pin of the early Colts, the black powder frames, they should have a hole on each end because they're turned between arbors.
Oh, well, this one I took it out of it came out of a second gen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so before we go here tonight, I got to ask Rob, you got anything else down there you were ready to show off that we can talk about?
Yeah, before
Yes, please.
before my son came in here and got us all
do the black
distracted.
powder stuff. So.
Oh, Mac 11.
Mac 11 full auto.
Woo!
So,
Oh, you got
nice.
an actual fun switch gun.
a what?
A gun with a real fun switch.
Oh yeah, it's got the fun switch right here.
Oh, nice.
I'm sorry, that gun's not licensed, McHugh. Neither am I.
Neither am I.
I see McHugh.
I like to
That
say,
guy's a miracle worker in that movie.
I like
Yeah, but whole
Blow
car.
up cars, flip them over, and
That hot 9mm.
there's not a gun that I've met that I hadn't liked. So I like matchlocks to machine guns is what I usually say.
yep. And you have Muzzle Blast Mondays where you cover everything, and I always appreciate that.
Yeah.
Me too.
So, out of all your gun collections of all the eras that you have, I have to ask, what's your ultimate favorite?
Oh man. I guess I'm gonna say my Mossberg Model 152 22 long rifle.
Oh yeah,
That's an interesting.
that's not what I was expecting to hear.
Me neither.
I know. Well, it's the first actual gun that I ever got. So,
Oh, I
That'd be a
see.
good reason to love it.
yeah, and I would go in this store in Tennessee and look at them, and this one came up used, and it was in really good shape. You know, I got it in I think 86, and you know, at that time it was a good 30 years old at least. And
Unfortunately, I don't think anybody in this room was born then. Everybody on the panel wasn't even born yet.
That's pretty good because I think it's a fact.
Oh, that's bad. I am old.
I think I'm the oldest of there, and I was born in 87.
Oh,
You were born in when?
I was born in 87.
87.
Seven, yeah.
and he's the oldest one on this chat.
It's the
besides
only one on the panel. Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So,
Caleb, what year were you born?
97.
Oh, my God.
wow.
Wow, Caleb, you're a baby.
Yeah.
Okay, before we go, there's one very serious question out here in the chat. It's very serious. Like I said, guys, my sound's blinking in and out. If I can't hear you and I try to overtalk you. Task Force Tyler has a question that seems to be on everybody's list.
He
Hey,
does.
Stanford, knock over any expensive guns recently?
Oh, no. We're not going to talk about that.
Everybody seems to want to hear.
No. Let's just say that somebody might have knocked over Samuel Colt's son's gun.
Ouch.
Oh! Oh!
Boy, I wish I could have been there for that.
And I didn't even
What's
touch
the
it.
reason?
That's the worst part. I was sitting there taking a picture of it, and I was like, oh, getting a video. And I literally set my phone down and just looking at it, and it fell over. And I was like, oh, no. And I'm like, I swear to God, I didn't touch it.
Oh, man.
But the saddest part is everybody, especially Squid, thinks I did it on purpose because he knew that they'd let me hold it after it fell over. He did. But somebody got to hold it after it fell over. Thanks, son. Oh,
That's a good story right there. Now which son was that? That would have been what's his name? The only one that died in the boat. Well, he could have possibly died because he was messing around with somebody else's wife. What's his name?
It was a Colt single action army made in 1883. There'll be pictures of it and videos of it on my channel.
I gotta Google it. I know I gotta Google it. It's his only surviving son, and he had such a great story of his life. Not in a good way, but
not in a good way.
What is his name? I gotta look at it.
But it was a 7.5 inch nickel plated with ivory grips.
We were watching this happen, and I said, "Now watch your dad. Watch him operate. Watch this." And it's kind of like, oh, you have to take it out of the case to set it back up. Hey, since you have it out, can I hold it? Watch it.
Caldwell for Colt. Caldwell for Colt.
Learn from
Caldwell for Colt.
I swear
Yeah.
to God, I swear on my life, I did not knock that gun over.
Wait, is Squib in the background
That
there?
was a really good impersonation. It kind of scared me.
Oh man, it was bad. It was bad. I was scared because I was like, oh no, I probably knocked over one of the probably most expensive single action armies there could be. Yep. Thanks, son.
Either that was a really good impersonation, or Squib is in here somewhere.
He is.
I'm getting a little-
He's on the other side of the table.
I was gonna say, I was
in Vegas.
Snapper.
I
He came
was looking
down
at
to-
Snapper. I was like, "Holy Christmas!" I can't tell because I can't see his lips moving.
I was sitting here looking for Squib. I thought he snuck in on the chat. I was waiting for him to pop up. It's like, I can hear him. Where's he at?
No, he came down here and went to the Las Vegas AT show with me, and he's been hanging out. He's been a lot of fun. It's been really fun.
More fun watching you knock over guns just so you can handle them.
Indeed.
Caldwell Colt's gun. The guy was known for a couple things. He spent all his time on a yacht. His mom tried to make him work. He signed his name, supposedly designed or helped design the 1882 or the 1898, sorry, and then 1892. And what he's really famously known for is receiving a load of buckshot in the seat of the pants, climbing out of somebody's window, and I think he died of that. So
Yeah, he was 36 when he
now
passed
he is
away.
known as the guy
Who Snapper knocked his gun over?
Yeah. Now he's known as the guy that Snapper knocked his gun over.
Oh.
And you know what's
So anyway,
interesting?
guys,
Immediately,
appreciate all of you coming out here. My sound is really blinking out here. I got to get a new sound system, but let's wrap this up here. Duke, what do you got coming out?
Well, I'm going to try to start doing some shorts this last week here. I've had a pretty nasty cold, so that screwed me up on shipping stuff out and filming. But here in about another week, possibly a long string of videos will be getting started. So hopefully that works out. But yeah, we'll see how it plays. But yeah, there's a good chance that by the end of January, I'll have a very long string of videos.
You might have some road trip videos coming up soon, is what you're saying?
I don't know if I'll film the road trip part, but there'll be a lot of content if it all works out.
People. Stay tuned. Exciting times are coming. Snapper, what do you got?
Oh, I got a cool video of me knocking over a really expensive gun.
I could not
I've
hear
got a
what
lot.
you said.
And we can't read lips.
Can't read your lips.
I've got a lot coming out. Everything from this pocket navy to single action army stuff. A lot. There's a lot coming out, gentlemen.
Okay, Rob, your turn. What do you got coming out?
Tomorrow I should be have a video up on the Trailblazer Life card shooting at the press. Just a fun little range toy. I also filmed the new Taurus TX22 today, but I didn't get a lot of filming done because my battery died. Monday I'll have Muzzle Blast Monday like I do every week, and I'm got something black powder for that, a little bit different thing. And hopefully within the next few weeks I'll have that LeSchultz gun finished and
Oh yeah.
And have a video on it.
All I heard was there's going to be a black powder video coming out, and then my sound blinked out, so that's good enough for me.
Hey, what are you doing next?
It's not my turn. It's Garrett's turn.
Tomorrow,
What's the video?
At 7:30 here on 11 Bang Bang, we will be visiting the Cimarron 1878 Colt shotgun that Duke loves so much.
Oh, you should have saved that one. I would have brought mine. We could add two.
Well, we can still do another one. I actually heard that.
Yeah.
All right, Ethan, what do you have coming out next in a couple weeks? What's your video plans? I don't even know what it is. It's going to be a few weeks.
Well, right now, while I got the mustache, I got to do some more Smith & Wesson stuff. Maybe I should do a video on trying to rebuild a Smith & Wesson No. 3 American and a Smith & Wesson No. 3 Russian. And
a Smith & Wesson double action.
Yep. No, double action works. Double action works.
Oh yeah, the other one doesn't. Well, it does, but it doesn't. It works in double action, but not single.
So anyway,
But
guys,
then
go ahead.
once I get done with that, I got some more flintlock stuff coming up. May or may not be getting ready to get a kilt and do a Highlander video on a Murdoch pistol.
Highly approved.
Now, if you wear a kilt, laddie, you got to wear it the traditional way.
Indeed.
Speaking of kilts, guys, tune in
Well, that
next week.
cold wind got to nip at your knickers, you'll be regretting it.
Tune in next week, guys. At this same time, we're going to be doing Historic Movie Saturday, otherwise known now as HMS. We're going to be reviewing the very well done Francis Ford Coppola's 1995 Kidnapped. So just think about 1750 Godfather. It's got stars Armand Assante. It's a mini series. Won't be as in depth as the last mini series we did, I promise, which was very good, by the way. But that was a long video.
Yeah.
But we are going to be reviewing that. You're going to see Murdoch pistols. You're going to see brown vests. You're going to see small grass. What is that cannon called, Ethan?
It's not a Verbrugen. It's a 3-pounder. I think it's a carronade. Little 3-pounder carronade.
And if you've always want to see Armand Assante with a Scottish accent, this is the movie to check out. So we'll be hitting that next Saturday this time. Any of you guys have anything else to say? Anything
if you do that Highlander movie, you got to play the bagpipes.
Oh, we got Caleb for that.
Oh, no. In this movie, they're outlaws. Sort of pipe among them.
Maybe I'll play it when I come out. Now you got me my Scottish accent, and I'm not going to get out of it.
And it's not going to go away.
Bring your car.
He's going to head up to Fraser Ridge.
So anyway, guys, we appreciate y'all coming out. I want to say special thanks down here to Rob from Firearms Addict. This has been one of our most informative live streams that we've ever done. Just the amount of stuff I've learned just from that corner down there when he brought out the wheel lock and, of course, the Mac 11, I believe it was, and all those guns that he had going on down there. And I really appreciate that.
Well,
and the car and everything that he brought out. Guys, go check him out. He's linked actually in the title of this video. In the description of this video down below, there are links to several channels, including everybody on the screen right now, plus a few others that I really enjoy watching. Go subscribe to them if you would, please. Anyway, as always, trust in God. Keep your powder dry. Bye.